When a woman walks away and acts like she doesn't care, most men assume her silence means she has moved on. They think the calmness she shows on the surface means she has found peace, closed the chapter, and forgotten everything. But that is where many misunderstand the emotional reality. Her silence rarely means she is unbothered. In most cases, her silence means she is processing, thinking, and facing the consequences of her decision in private. When she first steps away, she might feel confident, powerful, or even justified. She might truly believe leaving you was the right thing, but as time begins to pass, the reality of separation slowly sets in. The space she wanted suddenly becomes a mirror, showing her what she lost rather than what she gained. And even though she isn't calling you, isn't texting you, and isn't chasing you, her mind is full of conversations she can't escape. That is what silence really is for her. Not peace, but reflection. At first, she tells herself she's fine. She posts selfies, laughs with friends, scrolls through her feed, and pretends the breakup didn't shake her. But when the night comes and everything gets quiet, her thoughts begin running without her permission. She starts replaying the arguments, the moments that led to the breakup, and even the things you said that she brushed off at the time. She realizes that maybe, just maybe, you weren't the problem. Maybe she acted without thinking or reacted emotionally or pushed away someone who was trying harder than she realized. And because she doesn't want anyone to know she's wrestling with these thoughts, she keeps it all inside, and that silence becomes her battlefield. Over time, she begins remembering not the mistakes, but the good moments, the late night conversations, the support you gave, the times you showed up when nobody else did. She notices how her phone isn't buzzing with your messages anymore. And for the first time, she feels the emotional impact of your absence. She starts noticing the difference between losing a man and losing a man who truly cared. She begins to understand that being with someone who loves consistently is not something easily replaced. Not every man gives loyalty. Not every man shows up. Not every man waits, tries, or fights to make things right. When the quiet sets in and the ego fades, she starts to see the value she didn't fully appreciate when she had you. And as days pass, her silence becomes heavier. She expected you to break first, to chase, to apologize, to try to prove your worth. She thought she knew how the story would go. But when you didn't fold, when your silence matched hers, when you stopped playing the emotional tug of war, she was forced to face a new truth. You were no longer participating in the game. You chose yourself, your peace, your growth, and that changes everything in her mind. Now she has to confront the reality that losing you wasn't just a breakup, it was the loss of a man who walked away with dignity, self respect, and his head held high. That realization hurts more than any word you could have said. Her friends don't know this, the world doesn't see it, but she feels it. And her silence becomes the place where regret grows, where clarity surfaces, and where she finally understands the weight of her decision. Because when a man goes silent, doesn't return, the message becomes louder than any argument ever could. That is when she realizes she didn't just lose someone, she lost someone who would have stayed if she had understood his value sooner. At first, she believes she is in control of the situation. She thinks distance will affect you more than it affects her. She assumes you will miss her first, reach out first, apologize first, and try to repair things before she ever has to feel the consequences of her choice. This confidence doesn't come from strength. It comes from the belief that she still has emotional power. She is convinced she can walk away and still have you waiting right where she left you. In her mind, men are predictable. They don't handle emotional distance well. They panic when a woman pulls away, and they usually rush back to prove they care. So she expects you to do exactly that. She thinks disappearing, ignoring, or acting unbothered will make you chase, overthink, or break your silence. And as long as that belief stays intact, she remains calm. But then something unexpected happens. You don't react the way she predicted. You don't chase. You don't break. You don't show emotional desperation. Day after day, you remain silent, steady, and focused on your life. And that is when her emotional balance begins to shift. The confidence she felt starts fading because silence from a man who once cared deeply sends a much stronger signal than any message or apology ever could. She begins to wonder why you're not reacting. She starts questioning her assumptions and the story she told herself. Suddenly, the idea of losing you becomes more real than she ever allowed herself to consider. Instead of thinking, hey, he'll be back, she starts thinking, what if he's really done this time? That is the moment when doubt enters her mind, and doubt is powerful. It cracks the emotional shield she's been hiding behind. She goes from feeling certain to feeling uncertain, from relaxed to unsettled. She starts replaying past conversations, remembering moments when you expressed your feelings, your loyalty, your consistency. She realizes that men who love like that don't just disappear unless something in them has changed. And now she has to face the possibility that while she was busy proving she didn't need you, you were quietly learning how to live without her. This realization introduces a new kind of tension. Her silence is no longer about pride or control. Now it's about confusion, fear, and the possibility of regret. Women often assume they can reset the situation whenever they want. They think they can come back when they're ready and pick up where things left off. But when you don't respond the way she imagined, she starts to see that time might not be on her side. Your silence, instead of proving weakness, begins proving strength. And strength changes the entire emotional dynamic. She starts comparing you to other men. She meets new people, talks to others, maybe even dates, but no one offers what you did. No one gives the same energy, depth, stability, or emotional presence. It doesn't mean she can't move on. It just means she begins realizing the difference between attention and connection. Attention is everywhere, connection is rare. And when she feels the contrast, she starts recognizing how deeply she underestimated you. Slowly, the balance of power shifts. The man she thought would break becomes the man she now worries she has lost. And that is where regret starts forming, not because she suddenly wants you back out of loneliness, but because she begins understanding the value she didn't appreciate when she had it. That is the emotional transformation she never expected, the moment where the silence she thought she controlled becomes the silence that teaches her she may have pushed away the wrong man. Because nothing is more unsettling to a woman than realizing the man she expected to return has learned how to walk forward instead. At this stage, she may still be acting fine on the outside. She's posting, smiling, going out, showing the world she's unbothered. But inside, a shift is already happening, and it starts with the simplest, most human emotion, curiosity. When the man she expected to chase simply doesn't, the mind naturally begins to question. She wants to know how you're handling the distance, what you're thinking, whether you're struggling, whether you've moved on, or whether you even miss her at all. This curiosity starts small, a quick check of your profile, a glance at your story, a swipe through your last messages, but it quickly grows into something much bigger because what she's really looking for isn't information, it's reassurance. She wants to confirm that she still matters. Silence combined with self control creates one thing most people are not prepared for: mystery. Mystery is immensely powerful in attraction dynamics. When someone knows everything about how you feel, there is no tension, no anticipation, no emotional spark. But when you pull back and detach, suddenly she has questions that she can't answer. And the human brain hates unanswered questions. She starts wondering what changed in you. She asks herself why the man who used to give so much attention no longer invests it. And that shift, that internal dialogue, is the beginning of an emotional chase. At first, she tries to explain it logically. She tells herself you're just being stubborn. Maybe you're trying to punish her. Maybe you're busy. Maybe you're pretending. She assumes it's temporary. But when silence continues consistently and respectfully, without anger, without drama, without neediness, those explanations no longer fit. So the questions get deeper. She starts thinking not about the situation, but about herself. Maybe he's not hurting. Maybe he's genuinely moving on. Maybe I wasn't as important to him as I thought. Maybe he finally realized his worth. And that is when curiosity becomes insecurity. The emotional tables turn. Instead of you trying to prove something to her, she begins feeling the need to prove something to herself. She starts silently competing with the possibility that you might be happier without her. She begins paying closer attention. Your posts, your appearance, your progress, your energy. She might notice you're leveling up, looking better, improving, socializing, focusing on growth rather than loss. That is when emotional fear starts mixing with curiosity, because now it's not just about missing you, it's about what she might have lost. People rarely miss the person, they miss how that person made them feel. And when you detach, she no longer has access to the emotional safety, attention, understanding, and presence you used to provide. With that loss comes a powerful psychological effect. She starts remembering only the good moments. The human mind is selective. When something or someone is gone, the memories often romanticize themselves. She remembers how you showed up, how you listened, how you supported, how you made her feel understood without her even having to ask. And now that she doesn't have that, everything she gets from the outside world, other men, conversations, dates, attention, starts feeling shallow in comparison. That's when she begins checking in more frequently, but silently, she's not ready to reach out yet. Her pride won't let her. She wants clarity without vulnerability, so she watches from the shadows. If you post a new picture, she views it immediately. If you update a story, she's one of the first people watching. She might even start posting things designed for you, quotes, selfies, night out pictures, living my best life captions, not because she is healed, because she wants a reaction. She wants to see if she can still affect you. But when you stay centered and unreactive, a deeper psychological fear emerges, fear of being forgotten. And no matter how confident someone appears, the fear of losing emotional relevance is something that hits everyone eventually. That fear is what transforms silent observing into emotional pressure. Because now she's not just wondering how you feel, she's worried that you might not feel anything anymore. And that is the very moment when curiosity stops being passive and starts becoming emotional attachment again. Because nothing affects the heart more than imagining that someone who once cared deeply has finally learned how to live peacefully without you. When enough time passes and you remain silent, centered, and focused on your own life, something unexpected begins to happen inside her mind. She starts to notice that her emotions are no longer reliable. The story she told herself at the beginning, that she was fine, that she didn't need you, that she was moving on easily, no longer matches how she feels. The confidence she showed the world, the "I'm good without him" energy she posted online or told her friends begins to fade, because silence, when maintained by a man who is strong enough not to react, has a way of stripping away emotional defenses. She is left alone with her thoughts, without distractions, without you to balance her feelings, without the comfort of knowing you're still available in the background. And that's when the emotional journey becomes uncomfortable. Women, like anyone, need internal consistency. They want their actions, feelings, and thoughts to align, but when she realizes she still thinks about you after telling herself she wouldn't, when she starts regretting moments she dismissed as insignificant, she feels emotional inconsistency. And emotional inconsistency creates anxiety. She begins replaying words you said, things she did, arguments, decisions, and moments where she might have acted impulsively. She remembers times you were patient, supportive, understanding, stable. She realizes that maybe she was expecting you to always be there, even when she pulled away. And now that you're not chasing, she no longer has that emotional safety net. So instead of moving forward, she falls backward into self reflection. At first, she tries to rationalize her regret. She might tell herself that she misses the attention, the routine, the comfort, not necessarily the man. But the more she thinks, the more she feels, and the more she feels, the less she can hide from the truth. Regret is not about missing a person, regret is about realizing the impact of losing them. And that realization becomes heavier with every day that passes in silence. She starts thinking about moments where she could have responded differently, times when she took you for granted, when she assumed you'd keep trying, when she pushed boundaries just to test your loyalty. She thought you would push harder, prove more, fight more. But when you chose peace over pursuit, she was forced to confront the idea that you valued yourself enough not to stay where you were unappreciated. This realization quietly reshapes her emotional perception. You no longer feel like the man who was too available, too patient, or too understanding. Instead, in silence, you start becoming the man who had options, standards, and emotional intelligence. And that transformation creates the one feeling she didn't expect, fear of replacement. Because if you were strong enough to step back without bitterness, that means you were strong enough to build a life without her. And if you can build a life without her, then someone else could easily recognize your value too. Now, the idea of losing you becomes real, not hypothetical. That fear doesn't always bring her running back immediately, but it shifts the emotional power dynamic permanently. She starts watching what you do next, not with casual curiosity, but with personal investment. If she sees you living well, working on yourself, growing, improving, even enjoying life, the pressure intensifies, because deep down, she is no longer evaluating whether she wants you. She's now evaluating whether she has lost you. And the difference between those two feelings is massive. Wanting someone you lost them, desire is them is regret. Regret is deeper, heavier, harder to shake off. Desire fades, regret lingers. She may start imagining conversations that never happened, apologies she never gave, admissions she avoided, vulnerable words she didn't have the courage to speak. Silence makes a person confront everything they ran from. And the longer you stay stable and emotionally detached, the more she is forced to sit with those realizations, even if she hides it, even if she acts unbothered, even if she posts her strongest picture with her strongest caption. The internal battle doesn't go away because she now has to face the one emotional truth that changes everything. You were never dependent on her. She was dependent on the belief that you always would be. And when that illusion breaks, the regret begins. In the end, she's no longer questioning whether you miss her. She's questioning whether she still deserves the version of you she walked away from. As time passes and you remain silent, focused, composed, and unavailable, something powerful begins happening internally that she never expected. Her pride, ego, and emotional defenses start breaking down slowly and silently. At first, she was confident. She believed she made the right choice. She told herself she didn't need you, didn't care, and wasn't affected. Maybe she convinced herself she could easily replace you, find better, or move on without difficulty. But when you don't chase, when you don't react, when you don't try to fix things, her sense of assurance begins to crack. People only stay comfortable in their decisions when the consequences are minimal. But when the reality of losing you starts setting in, the emotional weight becomes heavier every day. And the first thing that changes is her need to control the situation. Before, she might have felt she was in charge, that she could pull away and you would still be there. But when she realizes you are genuinely okay without her, she loses that sense of control. That lack of control produces a very specific emotional reaction. She starts feeling drawn toward you again, even if she doesn't want to admit it. Women, like men, often need to feel valued, desired, and connected. When that supply disappears, they go into a psychological space where they begin rationing their emotional decisions. Instead of standing on pride and comfort, they start thinking about what they might be losing permanently. Now she starts noticing things that didn't matter before. She starts thinking about your absence while she eats, while she tries to sleep, while she scrolls through her phone. She may hear a song, see a place, or remember a moment that instantly triggers emotional memory. The brain connects experiences with feelings. Once she is alone with those feelings, she may realize she didn't just lose a boyfriend, she lost someone who cared deeply, who gave her a sense of emotional safety, who understood her in ways others don't. And that realization begins to feel heavier than the initial breakup. Silence has a way of forcing growth in both people. You grow into independence and self control, and she grows into emotional clarity and vulnerability. Maybe for the first time, she begins seeing the flaws in how she acted. She sees where she pushed too far, where she withdrew too much, where she underestimated your worth. She may even realize she sabotaged something good because she assumed you had no boundaries strong enough to walk away. That awareness leads to the next phase, ego collapse. When a person's ego collapses, they begin facing truths they avoided. She may start admitting, if only privately, that she should have communicated better, treated you better, or valued you more. This new internal honesty makes her emotional instincts shift. Instead of thinking he'll come back, she begins thinking, I might need to go back. That shift is huge. It means the power dynamic is no longer based on emotional dependency, but on emotional accountability. She starts wondering not whether she wants you back, but whether she deserves another chance. And that is the point where the emotional attachment becomes deep again, because now there is vulnerability involved. Vulnerability fuels connection, and connection makes someone think in terms of investment. She may not reach out yet. Pride is a stubborn force. Instead, she may test the waters in subtle ways. She might like a photo, watch your story immediately, send a harmless reaction, or find excuses to cross paths. Even the smallest interaction feels safer to her than a full apology, but those small steps reveal a simple truth: her emotional armor is cracking. And every attempt she makes, no matter how small, is driven by the same fear, the fear that you have moved on, that someone else may be benefiting from the version of you she once had, or that she genuinely pushed away someone irreplaceable. Eventually, she begins forming the thought she never expected to think: maybe I was wrong. That sentence, even silently, is the biggest sign that ego is no longer controlling her emotions. Her heart is. And that internal shift is what makes her truly regret losing you, because now she is not reacting to your silence, she is reacting to her own realization. Ending line, this is the moment she understands that losing a good man was far more painful than silence could ever be. As more time passes and your silence remains consistent, something even deeper begins to happen. She starts recognizing patterns in her own emotional experience that she never noticed before. When the initial pride, defensiveness, and emotional numbness fade, she is finally left with a simple and unavoidable truth. This silence changed her more than she expected. She is no longer reacting to the situation on the surface. She is now confronting the impact of what losing you actually means. The woman who once walked away confidently now begins to look inward, analyzing her own choices, behaviors, and emotional habits. And this self reflection is not casual, it's intense, uncomfortable, and revealing. Silence is powerful because it removes the one thing people often hide behind: noise. When there are no arguments, no conversations, no reassurances, and no reaching out from your side, she has to frame the ending of the relationship as something casual: a breakup, a disagreement, a phase that would likely correct itself if you just tried harder. But when you didn't chase, when you didn't beg, and when you didn't fall apart, the story she told herself no longer held weight. She has to accept the possibility that you didn't lose her, you simply chose yourself. And that realization is where genuine respect begins forming again. People don't respect desperation, they respect boundaries, strength, and self respect. Your silence displayed those without a word. As this new respect forms, another shift happens. She starts reevaluating how relationships should work. She may begin questioning why she reacts the way she does in love, why she pushes away when someone gets close, why she needs control, why she assumes someone will always stay, or why she tests loyalty instead of trusting it. Now, she is not just thinking about losing you, she is questioning herself. She starts seeing parts of her emotional operating system she was blind to before. It may be fear of vulnerability, fear of abandonment, fear of losing power, or simply immaturity. But now she is forced to confront it, not because you pointed it out, but because your silence exposed it. This level of introspection often leads to a humbling emotional experience. She begins to realize that people do not always wait forever, that love is not guaranteed, that loyalty has limits, that even a good man has a boundary where he will walk away. And that realization creates emotional accountability, something many people never experience until silence forces them into it. She may begin imagining how things could have gone differently, arguments she could have handled better, moments she could have shown more appreciation, times she could have communicated instead of withdrawing. These thoughts don't just sit in her mind, they replay again and again, becoming heavier with each replay. Now, instead of thinking about what was wrong with you, she starts thinking about what she could have done better, which is a complete reversal of emotional perspective. And when someone reaches that stage, they are no longer evaluating the past from a position of blame, but from a position of growth. That is why silence is not punishment. It is the catalyst for emotional maturity. Eventually, she understands something she couldn't see before. You weren't proving anything to her, you were demonstrating something to yourself. And that alone changes the entire dynamic. Ending line, this is the moment she stops seeing the silence as distance and starts seeing it as the decision of a man who finally realized his own value.